Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got an interesting story sent to me yesterday by a guy named Johannes, and he said, Steve, can you take a look at this? And it's because he's in the story. So it's from hometownlife.com. Susan Vila wrote the story. Dad seeks school policy after Livonia police interview son at school without parental consent. And it's not just they didn't get the parents' consent, they didn't even tell the parents it was happening. They just yanked a kid out of class and started interviewing him. That is, the police did. And when he said, can I speak to my parents, they just kept interviewing him. So Johannes K. Wood has been pushing for a new Livonia school policy ever since police pulled his son out of a high school classroom and interviewed him without his parents present. Now, the son is 15 years old, and he said he asked to speak to his father after Livonia police interrupted a biology class, pulled him out of class to question him about some vandalism in November. Now, the son says, me and my dad, we've talked about this. I asked the school resource officer, can I have my dad, please? And he said that they just plowed ahead with the interview. And then the father didn't even learn that it happened until his son sent him a note after the fact. Now, prosecutors are now considering a possible malicious property destruction charge against the young man. And of course, some of that is apparently based on the interview they had with him where his parents were not present or even aware that he's being questioned. According to Livonia Police Lieutenant, an investigation began after a homeowner heard a loud bang outside and discovered damage to his garage door, which he says totals about $1,600. A neighbor told police that some of the teens who reportedly ran away from the scene were recognizable. So they interviewed several people, including some at the school, and the police lieutenant says that Mr. Kaywood's son was identified as a suspect in the case. Having just received this information, the investigator then interviewed Mr. Kaywood's son. The lieutenant says there was no custodial interrogations conducted during the investigation, including that of Mr. Kaywood's son. And of course, a custodial interrogation is where the police have deprived the suspect of freedom of action in a significant way. Now, here's the thing. 15-year-old kid is grabbed, not physically, but you know what I'm saying, taken out of class and is being interrogated by the police. Now, does he really have to say, am I free to go? I do not consent. I demand an attorney. I mean, what does a 15-year-old kid know about this stuff? And sadly, I know that a lot of people in the audience are going to make a statement which actually now will sound more true than ever before. Unfortunately, you've got to sit down with your kids and say, by the way, if you're ever being questioned by a cop anywhere, you've actually got to just close your mouth and say, I don't answer questions. Sorry. And I remember, and again, I'm going way back, when I was a little kid, I remember being in school, and I remember police coming in and giving talks at assemblies about, if you see something, talk to the police. The police are your friends. Go to the police. Talk to them. Yeah. The friends are here. The police are here to help you. They're your friends. No, now you've got to actually sit down with your kid and say, by the way, police officer ever wants to talk to you, don't talk. Contact me immediately. Don't talk. Don't talk. So they say it was not a custodial interrogation because presumably if the 15-year-old boy had wanted to, he could have just said, I need to get back to class and walk back into class. Now, you and I both know that that wasn't going to happen. If they pull the kid out of class, we want to ask you questions. He goes, hey, I need to get back to class. So that was a custodial interrogation. Johannes K. Wood disagrees also, and he's remaining upset, and I don't blame him. He says, I just felt very violated, like they violated the Fifth Amendment right. He's not a lawyer. He's not an adult. He doesn't know our complex legal system. Most adults don't even understand all their rights on things like this. So to expect a 15-year-old to understand them, no. And Johannes goes on to say, he should have been interviewed either in our home, or we could have went down to the police station, or we could have refused to do an interview. If I had known they were going to interview him, I would have probably hired an attorney to be present. The father said he has filed a complaint against the police department. He said the department's response emphasized that officers would have stopped questioning if he had asked for a lawyer. So now The onus is on the 15-year-old to stop the police. Excuse me, officer, stop. I demand a lawyer. How reasonable is that? But they do not treat a request for a lawyer the same as a request for a parent, even in cases of interrogating a child, the father said, adding he wants no other parent to deal with the same frustration. He's also spoken to Livonia City and school officials. He shared an email from the principal, which included an apology for the manner in which the events transpired. Now, he's supported by his wife, and she says her son deserves better, more protected treatment. And now they're waiting for the school board in Livonia to review their policies with respect to how they handle it when police come onto campus to interview students. Kaywood points out that the state police actually have a policy in place on this. And he says it's nothing radical that I'm asking, referring to a 2006 Michigan State Police document that's highlighted under a back to basics section, the importance of being extra cautious when interviewing juveniles because of potential issues later in court. And that update says, when possible, parents should be present, but minimally, police should seek parent permission to conduct an interview. So the state police are on top of this. They've got a policy that says, if you're going to interview a juvenile, notify the parents, get their permission, go on from there. School board members ignored requests for comment when asked by the news, and district spokesperson said the board has a procedure when considering new policies. The district does not have a policy currently, she said, pertaining to how Livonia police should handle interviews with students on campus. So as of right now, a police officer can walk into a school in that school district, pull a kid out of class, and interrogate them in the hallway and not let the parents know. And the school will go, okay, the police, cops, let the cops do what they're going to do. That's what cops do. Who's going to argue with the cop? Oh, but you expect a 15-year-old kid to argue with the cop and say, I need a lawyer? So, unfortunately, and I have to say this, it's come to this. It's come to this where if you have a child who is in school, and you have to pick at what age you think this is necessary, but you need to explain to them that there are going to be times when your parents aren't going to be there. Some adult is going to be there, a person in a position of authority. And I'm not telling you to tell your kids to disobey authorities or disregard authorities, but I'm telling you that you have to explain to them in a very specific situation. If the police are questioning you and interrogating you about something that might pertain to you, you need to say, excuse me, I need to speak to either a lawyer or my parents, preferably both, and stop talking to them. And if they threaten you at that point, say, well, when a lawyer gets here or my parents get here, I'll start talking again. And you have to explain to them. And I know that most of the people in the audience know this. That would be an extremely difficult thing for a child to do. And don't get me wrong, I've seen some 15-year-old kids who would do that. But I know a lot of 15-year-old kids who wouldn't have done that and wouldn't do it. A police officer's ask me questions. I've got to answer them. So the state police have got the right idea. They understand this. I don't know why the city cops don't understand this. And of course, it's going to vary from city to city and state to state. So if you're not in Livonia, it might be different where you are, and I apologize. But I'm simply pointing this out because I suspect that this is a more widespread problem than you might think. I've done stories in the past about people being at school, children, students, and them having interactions with the police. And somehow I managed to get all the way through school and graduate without ever having a police officer interrogate me on school grounds. And I don't remember ever seeing it happen to somebody else. But these things do happen, especially more and more nowadays. So it's an interesting story. It was sent to me by Johannes. Thank you very much. Susan Vila wrote it for thehometownlife.com. Dad seeks school policy after Livonia police interview son at school without parental consent and without them even knowing. And that to me is a problem. Thanks for sending it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You were never created to be someone's backup plan. If that's the case, walk away.